My name is Sohail Imroz. I'm an assistant professor in Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University located in Daytona Beach, Florida. The topic of my presentation is using gamification in a professional online community. I have laid out my presentation into 7 short sections, and here is the outline of the presentation. I will briefly talk about what online communities are, a common problem often encountered in many online communities, the purpose of this presentation, user roles, gamification and user interface components, and finally with conclusion and some of the references that I have used. Now, online communities can be defined as a group of people with a shared interest or purpose, and their communication medium is obviously the internet. Now, there are many different types of online communities. For example, we are all familiar with Craigslist, Yahoo groups. Those are like forums or message boards type of online community. eHarmony, Badoo, they are like online dating services. And one of the most important feature of those online communities are the online chat rooms. Second Life is I don't know whether any of you familiar with the websites like Second Life or Yville. Please feel free to answer in the chat window. Those are kind of virtual world type of online communities. So Second Life, you can create yourself or a character in the Second Life. You can create a virtual world, and you can be a member, and very interesting. I never participated in those, but some of the attendees are mentioning that they have used. Yville is an online educational site, primarily for the users of 8 to 14 years old, young adults. So online educational website. Facebook, Twitter, we are all familiar with. They are social networking types of online communities. And the purpose of this presentation is some professional online communities. For example, Cisco Learning Network, Oracle communities, and I will talk about Now community. Cisco Learning Communities is obviously for Cisco professionals, Oracle communities for Oracle professionals. And Now community, I don't know whether any of you familiar with Now community or the ServiceNow. Now community is actually the online community for ServiceNow professionals. ServiceNow is an IT service management company located in California. And this presentation is by no way a product or promote a company or a product, but online communities, professional online communities, they have implemented this gamification concept quite effectively. And we just wanted to see the components of those online communities and how they are being implemented so that others can learn from these case studies examples as well. Okay. So Frame VR, some users have used Frame VR. I'm looking at the chat window. So, okay. All right. Now, regardless of any kind of online community that we are talking about, there is a common problem that is often encountered. And the problem is only a small number of community members generate most of the content. So according to Slack seems to be the main online community for professionals. That's very interesting point. Very interesting point. Uh, Now, according to one study that I found, Nielsen, he found out that about 90% of the users in an online community simply read or observe, but do not contribute. So in common terms, they are called like the lurkers. About 9% of the users contribute a little, but only 1% user make the majority of the contributions. So, and that is a common problem in many online communities. So what is the solution? Gamification could be a solution. Now, gamification is the use of game design elements in non-game context. Simply stated, there are like those of us who play games. I'm not a very big video game person, but some of the games that I have played have like concepts of points. The more you play, the more points you accomplish, and the more points you accomplish, the higher up the ladder you get, and ultimately that creates more interest and people play game for longer period of time. So back in 2010, starting from 2010, there was um, an increased number of companies that started to gamify their products. NBC, Ford, Southwest. So those are among 350 companies that started to invest heavily in gamification. And some of them have found out that the level of user engagement increases as much as 150% to more than 200% as a result of gamifying their online communities. Now, some of those companies used gamification for the purpose of user engagement and activity, to increase workers' motivation, to increase performance, and obviously for education and training purpose. And the intention was that by using gamification, the higher level of user engagement would be accomplished. That would lead to better user interaction. That would lead to more user participation and cooperation. And again, that will lead to even higher user engagement. However, implementing gamification is not simple. According to a Gartner report, almost 80% of enterprise gamification applications fail to meet their objectives. About 80%, so significant number. And gamifying an online community also requires development of effective, efficient, and complex software artifacts. And there are several challenges that need to be addressed. For example, reliability, security, performance, privacy. So all of those technical challenges present need to be clarified and taken care of in order to implement gamification properly in an online community. And those privacy concerns and the security concerns are part of access and identity management. And companies could run into significant legal problems or reputational issues if they fail to implement correctly or if they fail to manage the access and identity management. And the fundamental parts, two of the fundamental parts of identity and access management is user roles and permissions. Therefore, the purpose of my presentation is threefold. First, to understand how user roles have been implemented in Now community and how these roles are used. Secondly, understand how the gamification components have been implemented. And thirdly, understand how the gamification user interface components have been implemented. So it is my expectation that by looking at these good practices, it will help other people implement gamification in their online communities. So this is just simply a case study to uh, go over. Okay. So in Now community, there are 10 common. There are many roles, but I have listed 10 most common ones. Here you see in the middle, towards the middle of the screen, there is a role called community user. So most of the members in this Now community that has over 300,000 members, most of them are, that is correct. Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you for sharing the link in the chat window. And I will also show you some screenshot of that later on in the presentation. So these are the 10 common user roles. Most of the users in this community have the community user role. Users who have registered and accepted the terms and conditions of Now community. In addition to that, there are few other roles, for example, community administrator, community moderator, and forum administrator, forum moderator, gamification administrator, moderation administrator. So in this slide, you will see a short description of each of those roles. The knowledge harvester and proxy case creator, those are very few people in the community that have that are usually granted those roles because their usage are quite limited compared to the other roles. So all of these roles are used for primarily these four purposes. First one is setting up the community. Second one is configuring the community. Third one is moderating the community. And the last one is using the community. So all those 10 roles that we have seen in the previous slide are used in primarily these four purposes. So let us take a quick look at each of them. Now, setting up the community. In order to use the community, it has to be created first. Okay? And not everybody are allowed to create the community. You have to have a community administrator or forum administrator role in order to create the community. And after you create the community, there are several tasks that you have to do. For example, you have to create forums. What are forums? Forums are the placeholder where users generate content. Okay? So the forums have to be created. The forums have to be populated with users. Okay? And there are several ways users can be added to the forum. The users have to be given permission. There are some users that have only read permission but not write permission. There are some users that have both read and write permission. So those permissions have to be managed and granted. Access types, content types. There are different types of access types and content types in this community, and they have to be created first. And the content types for a forum also needs to be configured. So an example of activities could be like inviting users to become a member of a forum, creating permissions for the users, copying all permissions from one forum to another forum, copying permissions from a parent forum to a child forum, and diagnosing problems with user access to forums. So those are some of the activities that can take place after setting up the community. So the community needs to be set up first in order to be used. Now, after setting up the community, it has to be configured properly. Okay. Now, not everyone in the community have the permission to make configurations. You have to have a community administrator or forum administrator role to configure a community. And there are several things that need to be configured. For example, the content types. This community has several types of content. For example, answer, blog, comment, document, event, question, and video. Those are the most common type of content types. So, and each one of them behave differently. So the content types need to be configured. There are also feedback types that need to be configured. For example, helpful. If I create a content and someone else find it helpful, then they can mark the content as helpful. So, and if that happens, then I will get some point. The creator of that content will get some points. Upvote is different. For example, is actually conceptually different than helpful. Upvote is used for if someone asks a question and another person finds that question to be helpful, then they can mark the question as, they can provide feedback to that question as saying it's a helpful question. And that helpful question is considered upvote. So the upvote feedback is used for questions that are helpful, and helpful feedback type is used for answers, comments, documents, any other type of content. The access types, there are 4 different types of access types. Forum admin and forum moderator, those access types are managed at a forum level, and content read and content write access types are used for the actual content type level. Okay. And we talked about forums that contains the user generated content, and forums can be public, private, or membership type. Public forums are anyone who visit that that community, even if they are not registered public users, they can view those forums. Private forums are only invitation only. So if I create a forum and make it private, then if I give access to that forum to someone else, only they can view those forums. And there are some other forums that are membership type of. So if you are a member of that forum, then you will be able to view those contents. So forums can be 3 different types. Forum user permission are also can be 3 different types, excuse me. For example, public users are anyone from the internet who can access to those forums. They are public, they do not have to be registered. Registered users are those users who have accepted the terms and conditions of that forum, and they have their user ID password created. And lastly, membership type of forums. So just because I'm a registered user does not mean that I have access to all the forums. There are some forums that require membership, and you have to specifically ask to be member of that forum. And you have to send like a membership request. And if they approve, then you will be able to become a member of that forum. So all of those things need to be configured. Perhaps the most important thing that needs to be configured is the permission, the user permission. And there are many different levels of permission. So I have listed here some major permissions. There are read-write permission for the blogs. Read-write comment permission will allow you to access to the comments. There are some default permissions for the public users. Again, some other default permissions for the registered users, and event-related forum admin, forum moderator. So these are some common different types of permissions and a short description of those permissions. Okay. Lastly, we'll talk about using the community. So we have set up the community, we have created content, and so there are different ways that we can use the community, and I have listed some important ones here. The first one is navigating the community homepage, activity feed, and forum. So this is how the community looks like, the landing page. Okay, and obviously I have not signed in, but when a user logs in to the community landing page, this is how it looks like. Now there are several things that you will see here. I wish the screen was a little bit bigger, but nonetheless, on the top of the community landing page, you will see that there are forums. Let me go back to the previous slide. Okay, yeah, activity feed, forums, and blogs, and few other banners that you will see on top. And in the middle of the screen, this white text area, you can search anything on a particular community. You can search by content, you can search by forum names. So that's another way to use the community. Going back to here, search the community. Use a community profile. When you log in to the community, then you will see a profile page, and there is a later slide that I will show you. So each user who logs in, they will have a profile page, and there are few important information that would be listed in that profile page, and I will show you one of the screenshots later time. Post and respond to various contents. So these forums, videos, events, topics, any of those contents, you can post and respond to those contents, assuming you have the necessary permission to do so. And lastly, you can report an inappropriate content. There is a mechanism that if someone posts a content that violates the terms and conditions of the community, then it can be reported. So these are some major ways that the community can be used. Now, let's take a look at the gamification components and the gamification user interface components in this community. There are three major gamification components that are used in this community. The first one is rules and points. The second one is levels and level ranges, and lastly, badges. And there are three gamification user interface. So those components, the user interface components, are leaderboard page, user profile page, and gamification notification pages. So we'll take a brief look at each one of them now. So there are some rules for participation, and there are some points associated with these rules. For example, if you write an answer, if you provide an answer that is a correct answer to the question, and other users, especially the asker of the question, if they mark an answer to be correct, then you get 40 points. That's the most points that you can do for a certain activity. If you create a video, or if you create a blog or a document, and someone has found it useful enough to be bookmark it, then you will get 20 points for those milestones. If you write a blog, if you create a document or a comment that someone else find it as helpful, then you get 5 points. So there are many different types of actions that can be performed in this community. And based on those actions, you will start accumulating points. So this is where one of the gamification component is being used as a non-gamifying, non-game context. As you start accumulating points, then you will reach different levels. And in this community, the levels, there are 3 different types of levels. You can advance your levels based on your community level expertise, based on your forum level expertise, and based on your topic level expertise. The question was how we'll get the points, those bookmarking or the content creator. The content creator, like that's a good question, and I should clarify it. So if I write a content and someone else bookmarks this content, then I will get the point. Okay. So the creator of the content gets the point if other users find that content useful enough to bookmark. All right, so these are the distribution of points. So if you want to reach from level 1 to level 2, then you have to earn more than 500 points. If you earn 2000 points, then you get to level 4. And those are for community level expertise. Forum level expertise and point or topic level expertise has different distribution of points for each level, but I have summarized the point distribution for each level here. Okay, so as users start accumulating points, then they will start collecting badges. For example, there is a badge for correct answers 500. So if a user provides answers that other people have found correct, and if the user provides 500 correct answers, then they will get a badge. And there are literally numerous badges that you can achieve. Even if you can write correct answer to 5 badges, 5 questions, there is a badge for that. In addition to those badges, there are other badges. For example, if you reach community expert level 10, then there is a badge. If you are a ServiceNow user group member, then there are some badges. If you obtain a certification, if you pass certification exam, then you will get similar badges. So for there are badges for achieving certain milestones, certain achievements, and there is also a list of different types of badges that you can obtain, and those badges will be displayed in your user profile. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about some user interface component, and probably the most common and the most prominent one is the leaderboard page. So in this page, you will see a list of users in this community who have accumulated the highest number of points, the most points. And you can sort these users based on like all-time users, all-time leaders, or leaders for the last month only, and any the leaders in a specific forum or any specific topic. So you can customize this leaderboard page in many different ways, but primarily they will show you the top contributors, their picture, name, their level, their accumulated points in this leaderboard page. Here is the user profile page. So the user profile page, there are several contents that is two primary contents. On the header side, you will see they have user's name, the user's photo, title, earned badges, contact information, brief biography. So that is one section of the user profile page. In the bottom of the page, you will see that's the main body of the user page that has the content, activity, network, achievement, events, and ideas. So those would be listed in this user profile page. And each registered user will have a user profile page like this. And lastly, these are some notifications that you can configure. And there are many different types of notifications. For example, topics. If a new topic is created, then you can set it up so that you will get a notification when a new topic is created. When a new content is created, you can set up your notification page to receive notification. When users earn points, they will be able to configure the page so that they receive notification. When they advances a level, then they will receive notification. One of the question I just got is, how do you ensure that not too many cover just the position in your leaderboard? How many positions do you show on your leaderboard? Excellent question. Excellent questions. Minimum five users and maximum you can configure. The community administrator can configure the maximum number of users that can be shown in the leaderboard page. Minimum 5. So, okay. All right. So, in conclusion, there are many reasons why users use professional online communities like this, but primarily to get access to broader answers to problem-solving questions. Now, this type of sophisticated products, if users face with a problem, simply by asking the questions in Google would not lead you to the correct answer. So these are a lot more context-specific technical questions that other technical people a lot of time would be able to provide correct answer to these questions. So access to answers to common day-to-day problem-solving questions, that is one of the biggest motivation for using a professional online communities like this. Share experience, that's another one. And learning more about companies' products and services. So companies like this, they have many products, many services for different industries, for different size of companies. So these websites provide a useful information and discussion about those products and services. And as we have mentioned, that there are some researchers have found gamification can increase user participation, loyalty, and engagement in online communities. Some of the companies have reported that they have seen an increase of 150% to more than 200% in user participation after they have implemented gamification components in their community. And game mechanics such as points, leaderboards, when applied adequately and correctly, can increase users' motivations or members' motivations to participate. So there are other researchers who have reported that. And lastly, users' access rights and permission must be managed effectively and efficiently, because these are roles and permissions are two important building blocks of overall access and identity management. And if they are not managed efficiently or effectively, then there is a high chance that they might be abused, and the companies might be liable for legal consequences. So understanding the concepts, understanding how user role, gamification, and user interface components can be used in a professional online community should help other communities who want to gamify their community. And lastly, I have some of the references that I have used here there. Okay, so that's it for.
Great.
Thank you very much again for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Imran. Thank you very much indeed. That was really excellent. And now a bit of we've got 5 minutes if you can for just a couple of questions.
Yes.
I'll just kick off with one from me. So when I've looked at Stack Overflow, which is a similar type of gamified online community, one of the things that I found most interesting about it is how the score that some of the developers have accumulated on Stack Overflow has overflowed outside of the community into the real world. So there are examples of developers who've got jobs on the back of their Stack Overflow score. So you have employers saying, "I'm not going to look at anybody with a Stack Overflow score less than 1,000," for example. And so. Have you found? So my question really is did you see any evidence of that within this ServiceNow community where the gamification elements have come outwards? And if so, what does that do for the kind of does that give a rubber stamp of approval to the gamification system?
I have not personally experienced that in this community per se. Okay, what I have although noticed is many employers look at the leaderboard page, and if they find that there are some users who are consistently in the leaderboard page, then I have seen many of them getting job offers from other companies.
So that's really interesting, isn't it? So people are using the leaderboard as a proxy to quality of person, or what do we know why those customers are they looking at the leaderboard? Because essentially it's just, I mean, if I'm hiring someone to do a job, do I want somebody who's good at answering questions, or do I want someone who's good at doing the job? I mean, is it the right leaderboard to hire off?
Well, that's an excellent point. Now, one of the stipulations of the leaderboard page that if I create a content, I cannot bookmark my own content and earn points. Let's say I am asking the questions, and in return I am providing the answers, and I am marking the answer as correct. So technically, I could earn more points by asking a question, answering my own question, bookmarking my own content. That is not going to work. So there are rules. There are rules behind the scene that will prevent a user from accumulating, like making shortcuts or bypassing. So it is a general consensus among the community users that if you are consistently, if you are in the leaderboard page, you are truly deserve those points. That is a community. Each community has some unofficial norms or perceptions, how things work, community culture. So my understanding that the culture of these community members, the users' perceptions, is that the points earned are legitimate. So
well, that's an incredible sort of a resounding, what I'd call a rubber stamp. If the community buy into the way in which gamification is being used, then that's a real win for the designers of the gamification of that community. I think so. I don't know whether you knew, but we used to run a gamification gurus leaderboard for a long time, and so well, I used to run it actually, and I had this was from 2011, and I ranked the experts in gamification on this list, and one of the problems that we had with it was that there was a real kind of disconnect between the people who were on the top of the list and people's perception of who should be on top of the list. And so we had this sort of this conversation that needed to occur between the designers of the gamification and the community to get to that point where actually the list reflected what people saw. And I think in retrospect, perhaps, you know, gamification guru was too wide a concept to try and encapsulate in a single leaderboard. Perhaps we would have been better with social media gamification. Evangelist would have been a more accurate term for what we were able to gamify.
Exactly. And one more point. Points in this community can be removed also. Like there is a provision of awarding points when it is deserved. You can also remove points or reduce points if there are some legitimate reasons for doing so. So it's like a peer review. You know, in academia, it's a peer review is very common. So in this community, the peer review, the unofficial peer review process is also appears to be one of the cornerstone of why the leaderboard pages, the points earned, can be considered as the users truly deserve those points.
Yeah, that's a great insight. Peer review. We've got time for one last question before we break. So Albert's asking here, just comment. Could you comment briefly on gamification of existing communities versus starting a whole community from scratch? So for example, say I'm starting an online community. Should I get the community running first, then add gamification, or should I put both together right from the word go? Is there any kind of thinking or best practice emerging?
I think it would be in the design phase, when you are designing the gamification. When you are designing the online community, I think it would be better design if you implement, or if you start thinking about incorporating the gamification features right from the design phase. So that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, but it's useful to know. So starting with the gamification, I think you're probably right. I mean, even if it's more difficult, I think people like to know the community that they're part of and how it works from the start.
I see one question, Mr. Albert Vandermeer mentioning that out of interest, is there data from the gamification effort to gamify an already in place community or to support the generation of a new community? Oh, okay. So that was the.
I hopefully summarized what I was asking.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thanks very much, Sohail. We really enjoyed your presentation. Thanks for coming and sharing it with us.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.